Hello and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Nick Zulovich, the editor from Buy Here, Pay Here report. In today's webinar, Tech Talk with PassTime, the latest technology to keep tabs on your money, we're going to learn more about this topic from Chris Machika, the Chief Operating Officer at PassTime. But before we get started, I want to go over a few housekeeping items for today's webinar. Please make sure you've dialed in using the phone number provided in your communication email, or you're able to listen via your PC speakers. We are recording today's webinar, and we'll make that recording and presentation available to you in the coming days. So watch your inbox for a message containing links. You'll be in listen-only mode for this webinar, but we'll reserve some time after Chris's presentation for a question and answer session. You can submit your questions at any time through the questions box on the GoToWebinar control panel. And if we aren't able to get to your question today, don't worry, because we'll forward them on to Chris and the team at PassTime so they can respond back to you directly via email. Lastly, if you have any difficulties during today's session, please click on the hand icon on the GoToWebinar control panel and alert a member of our team. So think about how technologically savvy your customers are nowadays. When was the last time a potential buyer came to your store without a smartphone? If you want to reduce your risk and keep cash flowing into your dealership, you need that latest technology too. Chris is the Chief Operating Officer at PassTime, and he's going to highlight the latest developments in advanced GPS and starter interrupt technology and how dealerships just like yours are using it to keep tabs on their money on the street. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Chris for today's webinar. Chris, the floor is now yours.
Great, thanks Nick. I really appreciate the opportunity and thank you everybody for joining today. Nick, can you see my screen okay?
We can, Chris.
Great. Well, thank you everybody again for joining. My name is Chris Machika. I am the Chief Operating Officer at PassTime. I'm going to give you guys a brief background of PassTime and myself, and then we've got some great information on GPS and collection technology, kind of what you need to know and what you need to look for when making a choice in this technology, and also what features, functions are available, also what you need to consider as regards to compliance, and informing the consumer as to their obligations with this technology as well. So without further ado, I will get going, and as Nick said, please feel free to post some questions, and when I get done with the presentation, I'm happy to answer those for you. So just a background on PassTime. PassTime has been in the vehicle telematics space for more than 23 years now. We have customers not only here in the U.S., but also in Canada, Latin America, and across Europe also. We are protecting well over $10 billion in automotive assets and have over 10,000 dealers and lenders, with also holding more than, 20 patents and 32 patents pending that protect not only our interests but also our customers to ensure the features, functions, and products that we bring to market are protected. We are unique in the Buy Here, Pay Here space, or a little bit different than most in the Buy Here, Pay Here space, in that we not only design and develop our products, but we also contract manufacture our products ourselves through a Tier 1 supplier in Asia. We also control the entire manufacturing process. We do all of our end-to-end support from our software solution, our hardware solution, to our sales, our 24/7 customer care system and service center, as well as all of our fulfillment is all handled in-house by us. So we control everything end to end. Myself, I have been with PassTime for more than 17 years now. I am primarily responsible for all operations, but as you would imagine, in 17 years, I have gained a lot of knowledge on just about every aspect of the industry, from sales to implementation to manufacturing development, as well as operations, as I said. So happy to be here today and happy to be presenting to you guys. Just some more validation of PassTime and who we are, some awards that we've won over the last few years. For those that you don't know, M2M or machine-to-machine is a term that is used to identify these devices in this industry where a machine is communicating to another machine without human intervention, i.e. the devices in the car and the devices and the servers and computer systems that the dealer interacts with. And then IoT is a term for the Internet of Things, kind of a broader term defining the use of wireless and Internet to communicate with devices and machines and technology. So today we'll be talking about what you need to know about choosing the right technology for you, kind of what to expect once you implement the devices, what's important with compliance as far as consistency and disclosure and use of the devices, what network changes are proposed with the wireless carriers that are coming in the near future, and then also some features and innovations that are out there that you can look for, but also how you want to implement those features or what reason you want to use those features for. So it comes down to choosing the right technology. I talk to so many people out there that think they're going to buy a GPS or a collection device and it's going to solve all their collection problems. Well, I wish that we had some magic wand where we could make sure that all customers are paying on time and we can help rebuild everyone's credit. That's just not the way it works. The devices are no substitute for good underwriting. So you need to make sure that you maintain good underwriting and you're qualifying your loan participants appropriately. The devices should be thought of as a tool to reinforce those underwriting criteria and policies that you have in place. And then what is your goal? What do you want to accomplish by implementing the devices? Do you want to improve your delinquencies and your collection process? Do you want to be able to repossess a vehicle more quickly and for less money, which is a benefit to not only you, but also to the consumer? Or do you want a little bit of both, right? Well, what is your goal in implementing the devices? You shouldn't just think, oh, well, if I put a GPS device in, it's automatically, as I said before, going to solve all my problems. No, you have to make sure that the device fits your needs and your goals. And there are different solutions out there. There's what we call in our side as automated collection technology, or some refer to it as payment reminders, the ability to remind a customer in the vehicle when the payment is due. There's GPS technology where you can locate the vehicle, or there's both, where you can kind of blend the two and combine different solutions. So you need to find the best fit for you. And there is a checklist that was done by NABD a few years ago. If you want, I can provide it to Nick, or you can send a message to me and I can get it out to you. But it goes through just some questions you should be asking of your provider, potential provider, of the stages you should go through and what you need to look for when qualifying those. So many people look solely at price, and certainly in this space, when you're protecting assets in the thousands of dollar range, you want to make sure that your devices work and they fit what you're doing. So I would highly recommend looking at that checklist and not just looking solely at price. So choosing the right technology really comes down to, again, that goal. What do you want to do? Do you want to use this to help support your collections? Or do you want to help it make repossessions easier? If you want to support collections, and the reason I bring that up is do you want to create accountability for the consumer? So The way the collection technology works is every time a consumer makes a payment, either a command is set to the device or a schedule is sent to the device, letting it know that the consumer needs to make a payment by another date. If the consumer has not made a payment by that date, the device will automatically or optionally warn the consumer with an audible tone in the vehicle reminding them to pay. That typically will trigger a call from the consumer to the lender to make their payment. It creates an accountability for that customer. They now know when their payment is due. And much of the feedback that we have gotten is that the consumer actually likes that reminder. It's just a gentle nudge letting them know, hey, I need to stay on track. I've made a commitment to make my payments. This warning is there to remind me to make my payments. And what most lenders and dealers have found is that as soon as that warning tone is heard, again, that consumer is calling inbound to make their payment. So the hassle of before having a collector call a consumer over and over and over again trying to collect payment is now taken out of the picture, benefiting the lender, but also the consumer because they're not nagged by all these phone calls over and over and over again to get payment. It creates that communication. It makes the payment a priority for the consumer, and again, generates that level of accountability for the consumer. So again, do you want to use this device to assist in collections, therefore lowering or help lower delinquency, potentially help lower the amount of staffing that would handle your collections? Typically, we have seen dealers who are using our devices, their collectors can handle upwards of 500 accounts, lowering your overhead because these calls are coming to the lender rather than the lender making the outbound calls. So do you want to use the device to impact and change the payment priority with the consumer? Or as I said, do you want to use it for GPS to help with repossession? So you really have two options, or you can go with both. So we have technology available that will remind the customer to pay and then automatically prevent the vehicle from starting if they ignore the reminder for a period of time, and then will render the vehicle inoperable. To me and to PassTime and to many of the lenders, this is a much less intrusive way to immobilize the vehicle or to, I guess, potentially repossess the vehicle than actually taking the vehicle away. If the consumer's vehicle is disabled, all they have to do is call up and make a payment. In our devices, they automatically have an emergency override. They can enter in and they can drive it for another 24 hours. But in the situation of a consumer comes out, their car won't start, they can either call the lender, make a payment, or they can enter their emergency code. In a typical process, that vehicle would have been repossessed. The customer would be without a car, plus they would have to pay the repossession cost in order to get that loan and to get that loan reinstated and get the vehicle back. So the collection technology and the ability to disable a vehicle remotely really does impact not only the lender, but also the consumer. And then obviously if you are forced to repossess that vehicle, the GPS assists with that, thus lowering the cost from the repossession agent, impacting both the lender and the consumer. Okay. Okay, so things to consider. Does GPS alone help customers or consumers make payments on time? And I would say no. GPS alone, all it does is help you facilitate repossessions more easily. It doesn't have the ability to remind customers to pay. There may be some psychological impact in there that the consumer understands that, hey, there's a GPS on my car, I need to make my car payment more consistently, but it doesn't typically influence that customer's behavior. Whereas on their time period, but it's really about creating that accountability and influencing and enforcing promises to pay. So what should you expect when selecting a product, particularly a payment assurance or a payment reminder automated collection device? First off is the change in communication path. You will see a dramatic change in the amount of inbound calls to you as the dealer lender versus your outbound calls. It really changes the prioritization of your problem accounts. I know typically you're probably, as a lender, chasing or calling consistently the majority of your accounts, or at least 30% of your accounts on a regular basis. With these devices, you can really change the prioritization of those delinquent accounts, where you're focused on closer to 5% of those accounts, and the device is doing the rest of the work for you, reminding the customer to pay. So you can identify those problem accounts and help focus on those accounts and helping bringing them current, and the device can help you with the majority of the others. So that creates increased productivity, greater efficiencies in collections, and as I said before, we have seen where collectors can handle many, many more accounts rather than without the devices. And as I said earlier, faster and lower cost repossessions that benefit both the lender and the consumer. So as far as what to expect, I say they will change the way you do business, and they will change your receivables and your collectible process. We did a study with the Leedham group a couple of years ago where they took a group of 12,000 loans of over $100 million in buy here, pay here receivables, and we got some very interesting results. What we found was that out of all of those accounts, Leedham was able to determine that almost 94% of the accounts made a payment within a 30-day period. It didn't mean that they were all current. It just meant that they were making a payment within a 30-day period. So what that means is the device facilitated the communication to improve that recency number, improve the amount of accounts that were making payments on a regular basis. From our own data, we had a dealer submit to that group. They actually, this is a dealer that really manages their accounts well. They found that they got a 98% recency rate within 30 days on an approximate amount of $7,500. So this particular dealer, when managed appropriately, even achieved greater recency numbers than the overall group. So you can see there that out of 691 accounts, nearly almost all of them were making payments within a 30-day period. So it's about being flexible with the consumer, but creating that priority and creating that line of communication. This is an example of, as I talked about, creating or generating priority and eliminating the use or the need to contact all of your customers on a regular basis. So what this shows is, if you guys can see my mouse here, on December 30th, there were 121 payments made of all of the loans that were due on January 1st. There were 121 payments due on January 31st for the period starting January 1st. 114 payments were due in advance of January 1st. On January 1st, a warning was initiated in the vehicle to let these customers know that hadn't paid that they needed to make their payments. On January 2nd, 83 people made their payment. This is all without any phone calls from the lender to any consumers. On January 3rd, 40 more people made their payment. On January 4th, 16 more people made their payments without having to make any phone calls to the consumer. At the end of January 4th, there were 9 vehicles out of 121 that actually got disabled. 6 of them made their payments immediately on January 5th. Only 3 customers required personal interaction from the dealer. So out of 121 accounts that were due on January 1st, only 3 of them required contact from the lender. So you can see where for you as a collection operation, you can dramatically improve upon your efficiencies and really focus on those accounts that need the help when the device will help the rest of the payments come in more steadily. So really, this shows the progression of, hey, we're closed on December 1st, no one's working, nobody's making phone calls. January 1st, the warning starts. The next day, 83 people out of 121 made their payment. So gives you a good idea there. The other thing that devices can help you do is collect bridge payments. I talked about earlier being flexible with the consumer. It is important that you work with the consumers. As you know, your intention is not to repossess the car. You want to collect and help the consumer make as many payments as possible. Inevitably, most consumers have something that comes up in their life, whether it be a divorce, a loss of a job, an illness, whatever. They have some type of problem that comes in that will impact their ability to pay over the course of the loan. What the devices allow you to do is be flexible with that consumer and create, again, that line of communication and that priority of payment. I think statistics have shown that when a consumer gets more than 2 payments behind, the likelihood of coming back from that is pretty low. What the devices will do is the customer's not going to run and hide anymore because they can't drive their car. The customer is forced to communicate with the dealer lender when they do have that problem, thus preventing them from getting to that 2 to 3 payments behind with a better likelihood of coming back. So what this shows here, okay, in the circles, we had a consumer making a payment every couple weeks on schedule, and then all of a sudden here on September 12th, 2011, he made a call to the lender and said, hey, I've got a problem. I can't make my full payment. Can I make a partial payment? Yes, great. You can make a partial payment. We'll give you an extension for a few days, and then you can make your payment from there. So on the 12th, he got an extension. On the 13th, he found the money. He came in. He made his payment. He got an extension to his next period. Same again on the 26th of September. He made a partial payment. They gave him an extension for a couple days. Again, he came in, made his payment for his next pay period. Again, on the 12th of October, he called. He got an extension for another period. He then came in and made a payment the following day or later that day to extend his contract out. So here's a situation where a consumer had some type of problem, made arrangements with the dealer lender to extend his terms, committed to some type of promise to pay. From this point on, the loan actually collected all the way out, and then I believe the dealer collected more than $6,000 more in payments. So this is a loan that would have inevitably gone bad. The consumer would have had a repossession, and the dealer would have had a loss, whereas the device forced the communication. The consumer could contact the lender. They were able to give extensions, get through this little rough patch, and then continue on their way. So in this instance, the device helps facilitate communication, bettering the consumer, but also then assisting the dealer in collecting the loan. So one of the big things for PassTime is compliance. I hear from so many people that they're worried about disclosure. They're worried about the customer removing the device if they know the device is on there, so on and so forth. We have proven in the 20-some years we've been doing this that is just not the case. We require every single one of our customers agree to disclose our products to the consumer, or we will not provide products to them. We have worked extensively with Hudson Cook, Tom Hudson there, on our disclosures. We've worked with the FTC and other regulatory agencies to ensure our disclosures meet their expectations. And so a disclosure for us is a must. It is about educating the consumer that when they are receiving a loan from you as a dealer, this is a condition of the loan and here are their obligations. They need to understand from the beginning that this is the obligations they are under. If they do not make their payment, they will receive a warning or a disablement or both, and there is a GPS on the vehicle which can facilitate tracking. Disclosure has to happen, and what we found is that any customers that disagree with having the device put on, they are free to go to another dealer and purchase a vehicle, but most dealers have agreed that any customer that is not agreeable to make the payments, to live under this condition, they are not the right customer for them in the first place. So disclosure for us is a must. We have provided disclosures, or we do provide disclosures, sample disclosures to all of our customers that they are free to use. We always recommend that a dealer consult with their local counsel to ensure they meet their needs and each individual state's needs, but disclosure has to happen. It benefits both the consumer but also the lender. Consistency, making sure you treat each customer in the same way. You don't want to initiate a process by which some consumers are having devices installed for one reason and some consumers are not. You want to be consistent across the board in how you install the devices, what vehicles or loans you put them on, and also how those loans are managed. You would never want to get into a discrimination suit if you're not being consistent. Make sure you have written policies around this is why we put devices on these loans, this is why we put the devices on all the loans, and this is how we collect using the devices. Each customer is warned on this day, each customer is disabled on this day. We locate the vehicle in this situation, so on and so forth. So make sure you're implementing these devices and you're consistent across the board, and you also have written policies and procedures to support what you're doing in the implementation of the devices. There is an NAF compliance program out there. If you guys have not gotten involved with NAF, I would highly recommend that you do and look at having one or more of your personnel, particularly a compliance officer or somebody who handles your compliance, look at taking that program to get certified there. This is not just about devices, but about compliance as a whole. Again, I would highly recommend doing that. And in that program, they would support these same things regarding devices, but disclosure, consistency, written policies, and ensuring you're doing the same thing across the board. And then as far as we're concerned, we partner very closely with Hudson Cook on device compliance and certification. We have a compliance officer here on staff who can help you put together your own compliance policies and procedures, written policies and procedures regarding the use of devices. So that is available for you through us. One of the hot topics in this industry has been the wireless networks and what's happening with them. You know, there's a lot of confusion around what is 2G, 3G, 4G. these carriers are moving so fast in how they roll out technology, excuse me, how they roll out technology to support smartphones and tablets and high-speed data connections. The technology that is implemented or has been implemented into this market up until about a year ago was probably 99% 2G on GSM carriers, and the two GSM carriers are AT&T and T-Mobile. In the last year, many of the providers have switched to either Verizon or Sprint on CDMA. We would be one of those. AT&T announced a few years ago that they would be taking down their 2G network to focus on 4G and LTE and high-speed data. What that means is that by the end of 2016, their entire 2G network will be gone. T-Mobile, on the other hand, has not committed to a turn-down date of their 2G network. However, some of the T-Mobile network roams on the AT&T network. So there have been areas over the last year as AT&T has taken down their network and other roaming carriers have taken down their network that T-Mobile has lost coverage. We were a long-time T-Mobile customer. We made the decision a year ago to transition to Verizon and inform all our customers that the 2G networks are coming down and we are no longer comfortable supporting the 2G networks. We officially stopped selling 2G products a couple of months ago. We probably have a few laying around for some customers who insist on continuing to have it. But we ran into situations in Montana and some other states where entire networks went away overnight, and the networks are coming down very, very quickly. And we made the decision, like I said, almost a year and a half ago now, to transition to a more stable network with Verizon that I feel confident will be around through the end of the decade, so that we can ensure that our dealers, lenders, customers have service for the foreseeable future. So a couple things to ask for or ask about, or I would encourage you to do when selecting a device, or even if you're using a device today. Number one, make sure you talk to the carrier. Always ask to talk to the carrier. Don't take your provider's word for it. Reach out to them. I have seen personally in many cases where providers have said you're getting one thing when you're actually getting another, or where providers say or started delivering Verizon devices and then switched dealers unbeknownst to them to some type of other 2G device. You need to be very, very careful, and I know that's a difficult thing for you guys. Your job is to sell cars, collect and finance loans. You don't want to be burdened with doing your due diligence or spending a lot of time understanding carriers and networks. That's our job. But you need to, because you are making a large investment here. I mean, the cost of these devices is anywhere from $100 to $200, $250. That's a pretty good chunk of change. Do your due diligence. Make sure you're asking these questions. If you can talk to the carrier, if the device is roaming, what are the coverage maps in my area? Find out. And do your due diligence, ask those questions, make sure you understand. There's nothing worse than getting something or not getting something that you were promised. Like I said, there are a lot of providers out there that are still providing 2G GSM products. I ran into one the other day that was even providing a 2G product that was roaming on a foreign carrier here in the United States. Which to me is very, very risky. As I said, we have made that decision not to do that anymore. We feel very confident with Verizon as a carrier, both now and in the future. but make sure you're getting what you're paying for, and make sure you do your due diligence there. The last thing we want to see happen is, overnight your coverage goes away, and now these devices are essentially useless for you. It is our job as a provider to ensure we're providing a product that's going to be there for this foreseeable future. So make sure you're working there. Talk to the carriers. And then also we created a white paper about a year or so ago, and I'm happy to provide that. That can give you some more in-depth information on the difference in the networks and the difference in the carriers and what those timelines look like. Okay. So I was able to pull this off the internet, so this will give you a good idea of the T-Mobile network. This was a map that shows in the green on the left T-Mobile's 2G network coverage. So many providers are out there saying, yeah, AT&T is going away, but we're going to still use T-Mobile. Well, the problem with that is there's large sections, as you can see, Montana, West Virginia, and some other big chunks of the U.S. that is not T-Mobile's home network, and they can't control. So if the roaming partner in that area, or as AT&T brings down their network, T-Mobile cannot commit to keeping that portion of the network available. So if your vehicle travels into one of these dead spots, you would be unable to communicate with it. So while it's great that T-Mobile may keep their network up longer, the realistic side to that is they don't control everything that you would see today, and that when AT&T and these other carriers start bringing down more and more of their network, it will impact T-Mobile's network as a whole. So the green, you can get an idea of that's T-Mobile's home network on the left. On the right is T-Mobile's 3G network, so that's even smaller than the image on the left. So just be careful. Make sure you do your due diligence and understand the network that you're on. This, however, is Verizon's network map for their 1X and 3G networks, which is what we're using today. Much more expansive network coverage that will give you, as I said, I'm confident through the end of the decade of coverage and service. So we have one of the reasons we chose Verizon was because of their commitment to this network and also the coverage. So again, very, very important when you want the device to work, you want to be able to locate the vehicle, send command, and so on, that it does have coverage. It is contingent on that service. So some of the innovation that's out there and things you should consider using are geofencing and tow detection. These kind of go hand in hand. Oftentimes vehicles get towed to local impound yards. They sit in that impound yard for an extensive period of time before you're notified, and before you know it, the cost of paying the fees is more than the vehicle is worth. So most of our dealers will use geofencing and tow detection to alert them if the vehicle's moving without the ignition running, or if it's entered a certain impound yard, so that they can handle and get the vehicle back appropriately. Skip tracing tools and address verification, that would be, if the vehicle is in delinquency, locating it on a more frequent basis, essentially skip tracing, making sure you know where that car is if you need to repossess it, and address verification upon initial sale of the vehicle, making sure their home is where it is, and so on their forms. These tools can be great, but I would caution you, you need to make sure you're using them with a purpose and you're documenting those types of tools. So, if you're using something that locates the vehicle when they're at home to validate their home address, make sure you document that in your policies, and make sure you're always tracking with a purpose. They're delinquent, you're skip tracing, I want to verify address. Always have a purpose with what you're doing. There are systems out there that will track a vehicle, every 5 minutes, or every time you turn on the car and turn off the car. I would caution you from using those types of systems, in that really that's an excessive amount of information, and you want to make sure that, again, you're not invading the consumer's privacy. You're using it for the reason that it is designed, and that's to help in collections and help in repossession and lower your risk as a lender. Tamper detection, we have a tamper detection system in ours, and many do as well, which will alert you if the device has been removed or tampered with. DMS integration, many of you use dealer management systems. Our system, as well as others, are integrated with those systems so that you can manage them through the DMS and not have to manage multiple systems. I would encourage you to look at using that. It makes life a lot easier for you all in how you're incorporating the devices into your policies and processes. And then different reporting tools. You know, if there's devices that haven't reported in a while, you know, make sure that your system has robust reporting tools or capabilities where the provider can add reports if you need them. You can highlight reports, and they're very easy to get to. So again, here I would say there's many things you can do with GPS and the technology, but ensure that you're doing it for a reason and that you're doing it in conjunction with good policies and procedures. What else is out there? We have smartphone apps, as do others. We do custom applications as well. We did some stuff for Ferrari of Beverly Hills. Our devices are also sold as a new car anti-theft product, which we can even transfer to the consumer. So one nice thing about our system is that when the consumer pays for their vehicle and pays off their vehicle, you can transfer the device to them. They can use it as an anti-theft device. They can get it as get a discount on their comprehensive insurance. They can locate the car if it's stolen, so on and so forth. So we have different applications where the consumer can benefit from the device after the loan has been completed as well. The Ferrari app is designed to notify Ferrari owners when their battery is low in their vehicle, so they can address it and they can locate it if it's stolen and set geofences around it and so on. So we have the ability to do custom stuff, but also provide a wide range of technologies for our customers. So in summary, really there are no silver bullets. As I said from the beginning, nothing replaces good underwriting. The devices should be seen as a tool to support that in helping in your processes and helping make the payment a priority for the consumer, creating that accountability and creating that line of communication. Ensure that your policies and procedures are in place, that you're doing a good job in educating and training the consumer of the obligations that they're under when they're committing to a loan with you. You want to make sure up front that they understand, and our disclosure helps with that, but also our training of you as a dealership will help in that education process also. A happy consumer is a paying consumer, is a good consumer, and a good relationship. Make sure they understand up front the obligations that they're under. Do your due diligence. Don't just take your sales guy's word for it when they're selling you the device. Don't just look at price. Look at everything. Make sure that you get involved, you get engaged, understand the impact of the devices overall, and that you're getting what you paid for. And then pick the solution that's best for you. If you just want to have a GPS device to help you with repossessions, in the event that the customer has problems and you can't collect it anymore, and you're going to focus on traditional collection methods, that's great. Implement a GPS device. It's typically a lower cost to you, but again, that GPS will help benefit the consumer in that the repossession costs will be lower. If you really focused on collections, look at a collection device that will remind the customer to pay, and then also prevent the vehicle from starting in the event they ignore that reminder. The one thing I would strongly recommend is if you are using some type of disablement tool to prevent the vehicle from starting, that you always alert the customer with a warning or something prior to doing that. I think in all the work that we've done with different state legislatures and different agencies, that warning is very important, and it comes down again to that education and training of the customer, reminding them to make a payment. Let's remind them, let's make it a priority, use that warning as a tool to help you collect, and be fair with your customer, make sure they understand. So again, I would always recommend that warning, and then finding a device that has an override, emergency override for the consumer, so that they can, in the event that there is an emergency, either contact us as a provider. We get many calls every day from our consumers that have devices on their vehicles that we're assisting them in either entering an emergency code or helping them in an emergency, or even just find you guys. Oftentimes the consumer will forget where they make their payments to. They call us, we will immediately direct them to you to help make their payments. So again, make sure you're doing your due diligence there, and your supplier is providing everything that you need. So that's it for me talking to you guys today. I'm happy to answer questions, and maybe Nick, if there are any questions you want to pose, feel free. I'm open to answering whatever I can.
Absolutely, and Chris, wonderful job with the great material you've shared today. And just a reminder that we are recording today's webinar, and we'll make that recording and Chris's presentation available to you as quickly as possible. So keep watch of your inbox for a message from us that will contain links to those materials, so you can review them again, or look through the great information Chris has shared, or share it with other individuals at your dealership or finance company to make the best decision possible for your organization. And some questions have already come in, Chris, some great queries here. First off, operators wondering if there's a resource list or a website or some sort of guidance to determine if the GPS and starter interrupt devices are legal in their particular state. As you well know, some operators have lots in multiple states if they operate near a border. How would you guide them to make sure that they can remain compliant on the state level?
Sure. So as far as I know, the devices are legal in every state. There is no statute outlawing the devices in any state. But I would recommend reaching out to either ourselves, and we can help you on a state-by-state basis. As I said, we have a compliance officer that is much more familiar with each individual state, or working with Hudson Cook, who is extremely experienced in the use of devices in each individual state. So Corinne Kirkendall in our office is our compliance officer, and I can certainly put you in touch with her, or refer you to Nikki Monroe or one of the other partners or associates at Hudson Cook.
Very good, very good. Good to know. Good to know. Another question's come in from someone who's joined us today, Chris. Circling back to the coverage element, and when certain providers will make changes. The operator is wondering how much longer Sprint will provide 2G coverage. I guess maybe to quickly recap, what are some dates to remember on the technology side, and the questioner is always also wondering how to get that white paper that you highlighted as well. So I guess some specifics about Sprint, and maybe some other dates to remember, and then how to get that white paper.
Sure. So I'll start with the white paper first. Nick, I can get you the white paper, and you can disseminate it out from there, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So I will do that. On the dates to remember, the important dates are right now. The only line in the sand is AT&T 2G network will be completely gone. They're phasing it out now. Will be completely gone by the end of 2016. As I said, I'm confident in Verizon through the end of the decade. I believe Sprint is to the end of the decade or even possibly beyond. Um, I don't know all the roaming agreements and what percentage of Sprint's coverage is on Verizon and vice versa. But kind of similar to T-Mobile, I would say that Sprint would be somewhat contingent on Verizon, and Verizon would be somewhat contingent on Sprint and their networks because they do roam on both. And then T-Mobile, I would guess, would be sometimes towards at least 2017 or beyond. But again, they have not made a public statement. So I would think, as far as longevity goes, my best guess would be Sprint and Verizon would be the best option today until we get transitioned to 4G LTE. 4G LTE then would be available, I would guess, through most of the 2020s. But again, that's way far out, and I wouldn't know what the carrier plans are or would be for that.
Very good to know, Chris. That's Chris Machika. He's the Chief Operating Officer at PassTime, our expert today on today's webinar, the latest technology to keep tabs on your money, focusing on GPS and starter interrupt technology. And again, during your presentation, Chris, you referenced the great data study that you and Leedham collaborated on, and certainly some great performance metrics there. From what you could ascertain, how quickly can dealerships gain the performances that you highlighted there to improve collections? Just how quickly can an operator get up to speed to enjoy that type of performance, and as well, how maybe some anecdotal evidence from customers, just how has it helped enhance the dialogue between buyers, account holders, and the collections departments? I guess, again, how quickly to get up to speed, and how has it enhanced those conversations if a delinquency has arisen?
Sure. So it almost changes the dynamic immediately with the consumer. So obviously, if you have existing loans on the books, those would perform in the same way. But anything moving forward, once you make that change, would have a dramatic impact almost immediately. Again, because it changes that dynamic with the consumer. And kind of, I think what you're alluding to, Nick, is that the performance and that the change with the customer is so dramatic that the customer is immediately reaching out to you when their payment is due to make their payment, which is very, very important. The customer is addressing it with you before it becomes a major problem, so you can handle it appropriately, and they can handle it appropriately. So it's a conversation with the consumer more than some type of excessive delinquent or combative or not what I want to say productive conversation, right? If the devices help keep the customer current, make the payment a priority, create this communication so any concerns or issues can be addressed early on before they become a major problem, and that consumer can either not recover from them or the lender has too many losses and they are forced to go to repossession. So it's really about taking early action and helping the consumer through that process early on, rather than letting it get to a state where it's not productive anymore.
Excellent. Very, very good strategy to know, Chris. Thank you. And you reiterated and emphasized it during your presentation, but just maybe to circle back to that point one more time about disclosures. Just how important is it to make those disclosures clear that about the devices, to make sure that the contract is square from the outset?
Yeah, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here, but I've sat on numerous panels year after year after year, and I continue to get the questions about disclosure and do we need to disclose. And I have from the beginning, and PassTime stance from the beginning has always been disclosure is essential. We will not provide devices unless you commit to disclose to the consumer. We have worked hard, spent a lot of time and money with different agencies to develop disclosures that are good for the consumer and for you, so that they understand the process. And again, you want the consumer to buy into the process. You want them to understand their obligation. If the consumer doesn't want to do that, quite frankly, I wouldn't want them if I were in your shoes as a customer of mine. You're taking a risk. Inherently, subprime auto loans are a risky business. This is the condition you want the consumer to agree to, and they are reasonable terms. The consumer should be able to do that, or they have the free will to go and purchase a vehicle somewhere else. So, typically if a consumer objects to it, they had no intention of making their payment in the first place, and it's probably best that you would pass on that consumer anyways. So make sure you're disclosing. I cannot emphasize it enough. And again, use that disclosure as part of the education process for the consumer, and really the starting point for that facilitation of communication.
Very well said. That's Chris Machika. He's the Chief Operating Officer at PassTime. The way to get a hold of Chris and the rest of the team at the company there is on the screen there. Their websites, PassTimeUSA.com, as well as their toll-free number there, 877-PassTime, to get more information or to get some questions answered about the use of GPS and start or interrupt technology. Well, closing moments here, Chris. We are at the midway point of 2015. Just any other points you'd like to emphasize, or maybe some final words to get the second half of 2015 off to a great start?
No, it's been a great first half of the year. We have seen a dramatic increase in the use of these devices, and really have worked hard this year to educate the industry and those outside the industry and different legislatures and regulatory agencies about the positives of these devices, and really when used properly, they're benefiting the consumer and the lender in helping lower risk, but helping the consumer make their payments on time. And it's very, very important, again, that with any type of risky lending, subprime lending, that there is a balance of risk for the consumer and for the lender. And these devices help facilitate communication and ensure that the car payment is a priority for the consumer, and create some accountability there for them. So we're looking forward to a great second half of the year, and continuing to launch new technologies to help lenders and dealers and consumers make and receive payments on time. And Nick, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to everybody today, and I will send out the NABD checklist and the cellular carrier white paper that we did, so you can get it out to everybody if needed.
Excellent. Excellent job, Chris, and thank you so much for joining us today. Please keep tabs of your inbox, not only for the material from this webinar, but future webinars from Buy Here, Pay Here report, as well as the latest information for the Buy Here, Pay Here industry. So again, I'm Nick Zulovich, editor of Buy Here, Pay Here report, for Chris Machika at PassTime. Thank you so much for joining us.